Just like it. Clockwork. Another fragment. New. But such goes without saying. Clearly. This one. It's a good one. Surprise. When did I come to possess it? How did it find me? Well, I was leaving the dry cleaners. Middle of the day. 2 days ago, some gentleman was riding passenger in the back of a taxicab. His car was stopped, and I had the light to cross the street. I was burdened with my dry cleaning. It was rather cumbersome. Plastic bags flopping around everywhere, slick as all get out, or slicker than owl shit, as some of the folks might be keen to say. At any rate, I took a bit of time to make sure my things were well secured and ready for crossing the street. As luck would have it, luck had nothing to do with it. No, I was late on the pickup. By the time I looked up and was ready to start walking, I saw there was something like 7 seconds left before the light turned green against me. That would give the taxicab driver plausible deniability should he be in a gritty mood and decide to drive right into me, surely breaking a leg or two, causing a bad day at the very least. So in the moment that stretched between the shadow of an irrational panic and the fear of that taxicab driver earned from hearing stories told by all sorts for years, I froze my legs up something mighty stiff. It was only by the grace of the good Lord above, and maybe even the devil himself, I held my ground and stayed myself put. I can wait for the next light. That's when the passenger in the back seat of the taxicab reached out from his window and asked me a question. He was shaking his hand mad, furiously like. I couldn't hear him at all. It was loud. I leaned in a bit. He shouted again, shook his hand some more, like he was pointing at something in the manner one does when in the middle of a kerfuffle and you suddenly see the perpetrators. It could have been a scene from a movie, that man shouting something like, "It lives! There it is! Oh no, that's the thing there, the scary thing." I didn't see it that way at the time. I just thought he was asking me a question. For some reason. Seems a bit silly now. But it was happening fast. And no, he was not asking me a question. Not at all. He telling me to look out, to turn around, before too late became a thing. Well, it got to be too late. I'm getting there. Finally, the passenger screamed at the top of his lungs and said, "Turn around! You fool! Turn around! Do you have a death wish?" Oh, okay. No death wish. What? Turn around? Turn around! So I tuned around. And right then is when some dude on bike, a courier I presume, smashed right into the door of the taxicab, head first, like he was training for a stuntman career, like he was Cliff Booth or somebody. Just missiled his head right into the passenger side door. Big old dent. Pretty impressive, actually. Kind cool, too. But yeah, he dented the mess out of it. The driver was not happy. Nobody was happy. I was happy. Or just not happy. I was somehow calm and serene. I reckon in virtue of the utter strangeness of this Salvador Dali-esque moment, along with a growing sentiment of amusement. Perhaps. Calm. Cool as James Brown, Mr. Funky Boss. I kind of wished I had a good whiskey in hand. But no. Oh, right. Turn around. So I turned around, as instructed, by some unknown man in the back seat of taxicab asking me if I had a death wish. As I turned, I saw that man, the passenger, shiver from his eyebrows to his ears, and he rolled that window up quick, and that taxicab sped off like it couldn't be gone fast enough if yesterday happened twice. Weird. That was my thought. So, again, I turned around, as instructed, by that stranger. And then, in state of stun, I watched this little old lady walk right up to me. She wore a hat and a big bushy scarf that covered her from neckline to nose, and she sported a pair of those gigantic, huge old lady sunglasses. She was quite the sight. Seemed kind cool, actually. Chill. Well, she walked right up to me and poked me in the chest with a long, well-exercised poking finger and said, "You need to pay attention to things. Don't want to get hurt. Can't be too careful these days. Pay attention. Distraction can be somebody's death wish, or it can be a personal favor called in. Never can tell until the moment arrives. Sometimes the devil be looking for somebody, 'cause even the devil got debts to pay, deals to keep, things to do, business to tend to, banks, shoes, things. Hear me? Pay attention. Never know. You just never know." I was still stunned, not sure what was happening. Then she reached in her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper and handed it to me. She turned around. She kind of clicked her heels as she did, as if to send a signal, an alert, a communication, saying that this is over now and the next thing could begin. That's just how it seemed. At the time. And even later. Like I said. She turned. She clicked her heels on the pavement. And then I saw it. Some giant of man opened the rear door of one of those black cars that you just don't mess with or even look at too long in the wrong way on any day. This man? Giant. Clearly he owned the immediate vicinity around in all directions. I could actually see folks sort of doing their best to casually move a little further away from that car, that old lady and her giant of a man. It may not have even been done with awareness, but it seemed as if the folks on the street just sort of stopped and retreated as best they could. They looked at me like I was something unknown and hitherto unseen. Now that I think about it, maybe that's why folks just seem to scattering whenever I find myself at the back of the line at the deli or the at concession stand at the movies, not to mention just walking down the sidewalk. Interesting. I'll have to give that one more thought. Maybe, yes, maybe pay attention a bit better when I'm out and about. Interesting. However, I digress. At any rate, this giant of a man, he moved like he had written the textbook on grace and calm and ease and confidence and personally delivered it into the hands of the fairest and most treasured ballerinas far and wide, just for fun, as a hobby. He moved like he knew exactly what was happening, not only right now, but also 10 minutes out. I imagine he might have thought to himself, "Bruh, I'm good. Does get a bit boring. Nobody to fight. But this is the job. And I'm that guy. And she is who she is. I'm here for her." Maybe that went through his mind. Maybe not. At any rate, let me continue. He stood by the door. He didn't look at her, the lady. No. He looked at me. And it was as if he also looked at everybody else within 20 paces at the same time. He looked at me as she climbed into the back seat of that car. He never looked her way. And then that giant of a man closed the door, turned, opened the front passenger door, stopped, turned again, toward me, and gave me a good looking at. Then that's when I got confused, finally. I was now puzzled. Why? That man, that giant, that lady's guardian, he looked at me. He looked at me for forever. It was an eternity. But finally, he breathed. Then he nodded his head at me, once, maybe twice. Then he tapped the side of his own head, as if to say, "Pay attention. Remember, she told you. Pay attention." Then he cracked the barest hint of a shadow of smile. Then in he went, and they were gone. And there I was, standing at the crosswalk, where it all began. But I now had a folded piece of paper in my hand. There it was. Another fragment. Black ink on white paper, black fire on white. I was calm. I was chill. It was almost sublime. That paper, the folded paper, right here, holding it now. It's a new fragment, and I just thought you all might like to hear, should hear, want to hear, the story behind this one. Now, this story is no more tremendous or odd or seemingly the result of some or another international or interplanetary coordination of effort and resources involving time machines and giants, and God only knows what else. But this story is one of the ones I could tell, and actually can tell and share the dramatic elements with you all, the audience. Many of whom, most of whom, I recognize from your regular attendance at these readings or showings or unveilings even, if you will. Now, on to the fragment. The headline reads, "Crime and Punishment." The body of the text reads as follows. "I've heard it said that no good deed goes unpunished. If that's true, then I understand. If you can't do the time, don't do the crime. That's it, the entire fragment. Now, words, perhaps I'll find few to share with this fragment. Yes, let's begin there, with that peculiar symmetry, that strange reversal. For once we are not dealing with justice in the abstract, but with the lived calculus of cause and consequence spoken by those who've paced the corners, crossed the lines, and come to learn what happens when the ledger gets tallied and the lights go out. I begin tonight with a confession. I, too, have lived long enough to see the punishment come not for the wicked, but for the brave, not for the liar, but for the one who dared to tell the truth in an age of lies, not for the thief, but for the one who tried to return what was stolen. And so, yes, I have heard it said that no good deed goes unpunished. But I have also come to suspect that this is not a cynical remark. No, it is a warning. A map, smudged and crumpled, passed from hand to hand in whispers and glances. A hard-earned gospel passed down by those who tried to stand tall, only to be knocked down by the very system they believed they were helping. So let us not treat this saying as irony. Let us treat it as algebra. Let us treat it as arithmetic, because somewhere someone kept score, and someone began to notice a pattern. Now, before we move further, I must ask you to make a strange and terrible concession. I ask you, for just a moment, to imagine that the world we live in is not fair by accident, but unfair by design, engineered, rigged, built not merely to reward mediocrity, but to punish excellence, not to uplift the selfless, but to torment them, quietly, subtly, through means so elegant you'd think the universe itself was ashamed. A world in which the real crimes are virtue, a world in which kindness is subversive, a world in which showing up when no one else would is interpreted not as nobility but as a threat, a world in which the moment you start to give freely, you are marked, not with a crown, but a target. Yes, imagine that, because in such a world, the saying makes perfect sense. No good deed goes unpunished. Ah, yes, of course not. That would destabilize the system. That would embarrass those who profit from apathy and mock those who taught their children that life is a game best played without risks. But now comes the second line, the twist of the knife. If that's true, then I understand. Yes, that is where it gets heavy, and also quietly a bit comical. Because that line, that one, it does not cry. It does not whimper or appeal to some celestial court. It simply nods, like a man in a trench coat at a bus stop in the rain who has seen too much to hope for vindication, who does not need applause or salvation, who understands how the game is played. He's not bitter, just tired. And so he says, if that's true, then I understand. Understand what? That justice is not something that falls from the sky, that being good will not protect you, that punishment is often the price of love, and that, strangely enough, doesn't mean you stop loving. That's the punchline, isn't it? You love anyway, even though the good deed will cost you, even though the act of standing up will bring you down, even though there's a silent bounty placed on integrity. You do it anyway. Why? Because once you've seen the inside of the machine, once you've looked into the cracked mirror of this world, once you've learned the rules, not from a textbook, but from blood on your knuckles, you realize there's no other way to be. You are either alive or you are compromised. You are either awake or you are performing. You are either free or you are safe. And now, the final line. Oh yes, that line that's been printed on posters in prisons, muttered in courtrooms, and engraved in the hearts of both mobsters and saints. If you can't do the time, don't do the crime. It's a slogan, sure. But tonight, I offer it not as a piece of street advice, but as theology. Yes, theology. Because in this world, a world where no good deed goes unpunished, then to do a good deed is, in fact, a crime. A quiet, holy, invisible crime against the order of things. A transgression not against law, but against inertia, against silence, against cowardice. To feed someone who's been forgotten, to tell the truth when it hurts you, to stay when everyone else walks away. These are crimes in the court of the world. So if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. But if you can, if you're willing to face the fallout, then go ahead. Break the law of apathy. Commit treason against despair. Be guilty of love. Now let me speak to the one in the room who's been wondering, what happened to me? I tried to help. I tried to fix things. I tried to do the right thing. And everything fell apart. To you, I say, you were not wrong. You were targeted. The universe didn't punish you for a mistake. It punished you for waking up in a room where everyone else was still asleep. Because when one man stands up in a room of people lying down, he doesn't make them proud. He makes them nervous. So they punish him, to remind everyone else what happens when you try. And yet, somewhere in, you still burns the ember of defiance. You haven't bowed, you haven't sold out, and you're still here, aren't you? You're still doing the time, and maybe, just maybe, that's what it means to be alive. Now, let me shift our gaze for a moment, because we must not forget that not all punishments are visible. Some of the worst are private, internal. You may never go to prison for your crime of kindness, but you may be ridiculed, ghosted, misunderstood, laughed at, cut out. You may become the strange one, the one who cares too much, the one who keeps showing up after it's no longer expected, the one who remembers birthdays long after the friendship has cooled, the one who forgives too quickly, the one who doesn't charge for the extra hour, the one who leaves a message no one responds to. You think those aren't punishments? They are. They're just not printed on court documents. They're carved into the soul. But let me tell you something beautiful. To be punished for goodness is one of the highest honors, not because suffering is noble in itself. No, but because it means the system noticed you. You made a dent. You were a ripple in the still water of self-preservation. You were an interruption, a glitch in the matrix of indifference. And that is something. That is everything. Now let us laugh. Let us laugh not because the world is funny, but because the absurdity is so complete, so total, so mathematically pure that you either laugh or you collapse. I once knew a man, quiet man, fixer type, worked the back rooms, helped families when the state wouldn't, paid bills without names on them, fixed broken heaters for mothers who couldn't afford another winter. You've never heard of him. You never will. He died alone in a chair with a parking ticket in his lap. City said he owed back taxes on a place he didn't own. No funeral, no headstone, no obituary, just a folder. And in that folder, hundreds of receipts, anonymous donations, old letters of thanks. He'd committed countless crimes, good crimes, the kind that don't get noticed until it's far too late, the kind they don't teach in school. And he did the time, all of it, quietly. So tonight, I want to ask you something bold. What if you committed a crime? Not a small one, not one that gets you a slap on the wrist, but a real one, a cosmic one. What if you forgave someone who doesn't deserve it? What if you told the truth and let it ruin your career? What if you showed up for someone who's already gone? What if you lived as if goodness were a crime worth going to jail for? Would you do the time? Because in a world like this, where systems punish mercy and reward manipulation, then being good is no longer passive. It is resistance. It is rebellion. It is a form of insurrection. And if you do it well, they'll call you a criminal. They'll say you crossed the line. They'll say you disrupted the order. And they'll be right, because you did. So let us close the night with this strange and sacred arithmetic. If every good deed brings punishment, then every punishment reveals a good deed. And if you've been punished, not for harming, but for helping, not for breaking, but for mending, not for taking, but for giving, then, my friend, you are not cursed, you are confirmed, and that may be the highest verdict of all. Good night, stay dangerous, and remember, if you're going to do the crime, make it worth the time.